Hi all you music fans, my name is Andy Rodriguez, also known as the Blackspinner. And today's episode, if you're new to my channel, what I do here is I go through all my vinyl, and I go through them in alphabetical and chronological order. But I've already gone through A through Z, so if you want to see more of my channels, just go to my YouTube page and type in Blackspinner. You'll be able to find all my other videos. I've already gone A through Z and I've already done my compilations. Now what we're going to be doing here is that I'm going to be doing special episodes. This special episode, I am going to be going through my top 20, my personal top 20 of all my vinyl. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the songs, because if you want to know the songs on the albums, you can easily just go to my other channels for the respected letter of the band, because I went through them in alphabetical and in chronological order. So this is going to be my top 20. I might be mentioning a couple of songs here and there, but mainly I'm going to be talking about why it's in my top 20, and also a little bit of history of this specific album, of time and place in the discography of the bands, or the respected bands. This is in no way any particular order. I'm not going 20 to number 1 and saying this is my definite number 1 vinyl. No, this is just my top 20. There's not any kind of honorable mentions to make it 25. No, this is 20. I went through them and I picked out 20, and then I weeded some out and replaced them with others. And also, it was kind of hard because I've got a lot of bands that I love multiple albums, but I only picked one album per band. I didn't get 3 or 4 Beatles or 2 or 3 Neil Youngs or a couple of Frank Zappas. Every band that I chose only represented by one album. And so these will be in alphabetical order. They're in no way numbered in certain ways. So we're going to start it. Top 20. My personal top 20. AC/DC, Back in Black, released in 1980. Now, why did I choose this one? Well, I chose this one because there was so much going on in the band. Their original singer, Bon Scott, had died after making one of their best albums at the time, being Highway to Hell. And they released Back in Black, a memoriam dedicated to Bon Scott. And you can hear it with the ringing of the bells, just introducing this album. Just bone chilling, and just giving honor to Bon Scott. And how were they gonna move on after such a iconic singer leaving them? Well, Brian Johnson did a great job on this album, and I had picked this because there was so much what was going to go on with AC/DC after Bon Scott, and they come out with Back in Black. This is a top seller album, and each album that is on my top 20, I know every song word for word, note for note. That's why it's in my top 20. So this one here, there was so much going on in the AC/DC camp. They come out with an album top notch from beginning to end. There's no wasted song on here, no wasted note, nothing. A must have. And the next one that I have is the White Album by the Beatles. This is my favorite Beatles album. Why? Well, first of all, it's got more songs. It's a double album. You open it up, and there's the guys, and here's all the songs on here on this side. All the songs on here. And again, big time turmoil going on when this album was being made. You know, their manager, Brian Epstein, had died a year before of you can call it, you know, a suicide or drug overdose. Either way, the man passed away, leaving the Beatles without a manager. And the Beatles had just made a movie called The Magical Mystery Tour, and it was an album, a very good album, but the movie flopped, and the Beatles were in control of that album, and that was, I'm sorry, of that movie. The movie flopped. It was panned by critics alike, so they retreated to India with George. It was George's idea to go to India. The guys went half-heartedly, really upset at George because George wanted this to be a meditation, and the guys treated it as a celebrity getaway. So they came back to Abbey Road to start on the White Album. They brought a lot of songs with them from India with them, and they recorded. They went to work. The recording sessions were just really hard. Some of the guys were there for the recording project. Some of them weren't. Like, for instance, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, it really irritated George that no one took that song seriously. And also, Eric Clapton plays on that because George had invited Eric Clapton because when there was a guest there, the Beatles, acted, with manners to each other, and they treated each other right. But at that time, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of bickering. Ringo Starr would walk out during these sessions, and then come back. He would walk out because he was just tired of all the fighting going on. But they still managed to put together a double album with just top-notch songs. Not just top-notch songs. There's so much different emotions going on during the White Album. The songs on here are beautiful. They're weird, and some are just downright just an ugly sounding guitars on here. It's so heavy, like on Helter Skelter, and Happiness Is a Warm Gun, and just anger in a lot of these songs, and a lot of peaceful songs on here. It's just a manic album with so many different emotions going in and out. So that's why I chose the White Album for the Beatles. There's so much going on. All four guys are going in so many different directions, and that's why I chose that one. Up next on my top 40, my top 20. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. This is my favorite Black Sabbath album. This was their second release. It was released real quickly after their debut album, simply called Black Sabbath. And this is even a departure from their first album. This is completely different from their first album. The first album was kind of a slow, loud, drudgery, hard-hitting. This is fast. This is furious. Ozzy Osbourne, the singer, is just spitting out lyrics almost as quickly as he can, and then slow it down. Also, this has a instrumental in it, which Black Sabbath does an instrumental on every album, but to me, this is the best instrumental, which is Rat Salad is on here, and this is just a bone-chilling album from beginning to end. And next, and in fact that is part of the holy trinity of hard rock albums, that one being one, and this one being the next one, Deep Purple, Machine Head. This is also my top 20. Right here, Deep Purple, and they change they changed their whole genre of music leading up to this. Before, there were a couple of hard rock albums that they had released before this, and they started off kind of, it's hard to say it. It's kind of a prog heavy sound. It was kind of odd in their earlier years. This one was still released probably a few years after that. This was released in 71, 72? I gotta get back to you on that. But this was a departure from the first 3 or 4 albums that were leading up to this with their very previous albums like Fireball and Deep Purple and rock. But this is where they put it all together with the guitars and the keyboards interlocking and interlapping and working off of each other. They mastered it on Machine Head, and this has so many other iconic songs on it. And this is a fantastic album by Deep Purple, my favorite Deep Purple. That's why it's on here. And this one here, if we're going to relate anything to these top 20, there was a lot of changes going on at this time for these bands. A lot of changes in their music, and a lot of big gambles taken on these, which will bring us to Bob Dylan's "Bring It All Back Home." This is going to be part of my top 10, my top 20. This is my favorite Bob Dylan album. The first side is electric for the first time. Not just electric, but with a full band playing with them. And those songs are just, just full force, full band. The first time Bob Dylan had done that, this would be his fourth release. His first 3 albums were all acoustic. But wait for the all acoustic, because the second side is all acoustic and starts off with Mr. Tambourine Man on side 2, and it starts that whole acoustic side. So this is a departure. He takes a big gamble, and he starts off side 1 with an all acoustic, with all electric band, with a full band with him for the first time. And that's why this is very iconic in my record collection. This used to belong to my uncle René until I bothered him enough to give it to me. And talking about a departure and a change in genres, this album, top notch, beginning to end, great song. Not just, a great album. Not just the title song, but the whole album is fantastic. Hotel California by the Eagles. Before this, they had been recording a lot of country flavored country rock albums and a lot of acoustic songs. So in comes in Joe Walsh. This is Joe Walsh's first album with the band, and you can tell his presence immediately. This is an all rock. This is an all-out rock album, especially the title track, "Life in the Fast Lane," and "Victim of Love," and a couple of other songs where he intertwines lead guitars with Don Felder. So this here, from beginning to end, it's just fantastic. And that's why I chose this to be in my top 20. From beginning to end, word for word, note for note, it's top notch. And here, I added this debut album. This will be the first debut album that's going to be in my top 20. I don't have that many debut albums if I have more than this one. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. And the reason why this is in my top 20 was that when this was released in 1987, there was a lot of not pop metal, but and I don't want to say hair bands, because that's just a horrible way to talk about that genre. It was just a change that needed to be done. They hard rock music needed a kick in the pants, because MTV had gotten a hold of them, and MTV had commercialized it. MTV had really kind of ruined it, even though it was high in its popularity, but the output of the music was just not right. Guns N' Roses came in, then MTV would grab a hold of them and change them and mold them to what they wanted. But not for this album. This album was dirty, grungy, hard, heavy. The lyrics were just so nightmarish. So this was a fantastic album. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, in my top 20 of all my vinyl. And what I have next on my top 20 is going to be a band that was part of the heavy metal British invasion. Another British invasion. This was called the New Metal of British. I forgot the way that they had named it. But this would be their third album. first one with a new singer by the name of Bruce Dickinson. I'm talking about Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. This just revolutionized heavy metal in the 80s. And here's the back of it. And they had just moved on from their previous singer, and Bruce Dickinson joined them, and it just took him to a whole nother level. His charisma, his voice, his storytelling ability. This album is just a fantastic listen to, and I highly recommend it. If you don't have it or if you never heard it, please stream it. But Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast, is in my top 20 of all my vinyl. This is a must listen to. And I was talking about the Holy Trinity of Deep Purple, Machine Head, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and the other one was Led Zeppelin 4. But I did not choose Led Zeppelin 4. I chose Led Zeppelin II to be in my top 20. This is heavy, and it's more consistent to me than Led Zeppelin 4. This is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. It's jumped around from 1, 2, 3 in Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti, but this, to me, from beginning to end, Led Zeppelin 2 is my favorite Led Zeppelin album, and it's a departure from what they did on Zeppelin 1. On Zeppelin 1, it was more blues based with a couple of covers. This one here was original. Was it original? It might not have been original all the way through. There might have been, let me see here, Moby Dick. No, you know what? Yeah, everything seems to be original on this one. This still has a little bit of blues to it, but it's pretty much a rock and roll album released in '69 by these guys, and they do fantastic. Led Zeppelin 2. And in 1983, was it 83? This will be the last album for this band with the original bass player. The original bass player will die in a car crash and change this band forever. But this album here, Master of Puppets by Metallica, top notch from beginning to end. Nothing by Metallica ever touched this. Even the album cover, nothing ever touched it. Here's a picture of the back with the guys. And again, if you want me to go through the songs and talk more about the songs, you would go to my go to my previous YouTube episodes. This one will be, of course, under the letter M. I don't want to repeat myself to the people that have already seen my videos. So Master of Puppets, this will be their third album, and this will be their breakout album to the masses. The one previous to this was I forgot the name of the album. Oh my God, there was Kill 'Em All, and then hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. Ride the Lightning. I'm sorry about that, guys. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I'm trying to get stuff off the top of my head. So after Ride the Lightning, Master Puppets, this was a big album for them. This put them on the map. This put them on, just not on the map of heavy metal, but also introducing us to a different type of heavy metal, a notch above heavy metal called thrash, and this kind of introduced it. This album let other bands know that we could be thrashy and still hit it big, and really changed the landscape for heavy metal and thrash going into the 90s. Master of Puppets. This album here comes from the family of Black Sabbath. This is his debut album. After Ozzy Osbourne was quit or released or told to leave Black Sabbath because of substance abuse, even though the whole band was having problems with substance abuse, but they singled out Ozzy, so this was his debut album. They, people had left him for dead. People had said that, he's a burnout. Blizzard of Oz, fantastic answer. This will be the beginning of his solo legacy, Blizzard of Oz. And the songs on here were just top notch. This has Crazy Train on it. This has I Don't Know. This was just so well written. He has so much energy on this album. And not just that, but the other players on here with Randy Rhoads and with the drummer being Lee Kerslake, who was also a drummer for Uriah Heep, and Bo Daisley, who had played bass with Rainbow. So this was almost a super group that joined Ozzy for his debut album, and it did not disappoint. Just the energy that he fed off of this band just made this a legendary release. Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz. And this album for this gentleman and his band was a make or break for him. Talk about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes. Again, beginning to end, just his best work. And he's got a lot of work. He's got a lot of great stuff, but nothing better than Damn the Torpedoes. I mean, just his birds-like guitar work, his birds-like rhythm with 80s fresh lyrics. It's just, I still throw this on quite a bit on a regular basis. This is just great, and this was a big gamble for him. He put his money where his mouth is, because this was do or die for Tom Petty. Because his first two releases were good, but not big sellers, and that's what makes an artist keep going, are big sellers. So this opened up the floodgates for everything we know about Tom Petty, who's now a legend, and it all started here. And speaking of legends, these guys had already been recording and making a handful of albums, but they weren't a big hit yet. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. You can hear this whole album played in its entirety on any kind of classic rock station, because all these songs are played on the radio. That's how good this is. And this is the best Pink Floyd album, in my opinion. From beginning to end, this is great. And at the time, this album, I mean, they were twiddling with so many different sounds. And after they had made Atom Heart Mother and then Metal, it started to get closer and closer to this sound. But they perfected the Pink Floyd sound that we know and love on this album. That's why it's part of my top 20. Everything we know and love about Pink Floyd comes from here. Yes, there were so many great albums before. I'm not taking anything away from what they did with Pipers at the Gates of Dawn up to Metal. Nothing. Oh, well, wait. No, Obscured by Clouds, and then it was this one. But this was their breakthrough. This is what made everyone stand attention to Pink Floyd, and to go back and listen to Pink Floyd, and then be excited for Wish You Were Here, Animals, Wall, and so on and so on. And what I have next here is an album that I just recently included into the top 20. I went back and I heard it again and said, is this going to be worthy of being in my top 20? And yeah, it is. Especially this when this came. This was this right here, Sticky Fingers by Rolling Stones. This was in the best era of the Rolling Stones, in my opinion. You had this one, and before this one you had Beggar's Banquet, and after this one you had Exile on Main Street, and then Goat's Head Soup, and then It's Only Rock and Roll, and I Love It. But I like it, something like that. You know what I'm talking about. But Sticky Fingers to me is the best one of the group of their most important era, because this album here has everything that you want of every types of music that they could put out there. They had blues, they had rock, they had hard rock, they had the psychedelic sound on this one. They stretched out songs on this one, and they had acoustic ballads. All that put onto this album. So Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers is my favorite Rolling Stones album, so that's why it is in my top 20. This one here, this next one, I'll just show you. Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run. This opens up. At the time, this was his third release, and this album was so good that he was both on the cover of Time and Newsweek magazines at the height of this album. He will sue his record company, or they will sue him, or a manager, not quite too sure, but there will be about a 2 or 3 year layover after this album. You know, when you hit it big, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a piece of pie after you hit it big. But he hit it big because of this album. The first 2 albums were okay. I mean, in fact, his second one, you know, the E Street Shuffle, was great, but it wasn't a big seller. This one broke him out. Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. Hear it. This is what led him to be the artist that he is today. This is the album that allowed him to go on for decades and decades and decades. Next, we have an album that is just very special to me. A big place in my heart. This is in my top 20. There was no doubt that this might even be in my top 10. It might surprise some people, but it won't surprise the people that know me very well. Pinkerton by Weezer. This album was just, it's been, let me tell you about this album. Rolling Stone put it as the worst album of the 90s, and now all of a sudden it's the Rolling Stones, one of the best albums of the 90s. But to me, it was always one of the best of the 90s. It's the best Weezer. It is top notch beginning to end. One of my favorite albums, and why it's just written so well, and the guitar and the band just playing so perfectly on this album. The emotions going up and down on this album, but sang with aggression. And after their debut album, the Blue Album, this doesn't sound anything like it. And this is their second album. It didn't sound. In fact, this sounds like nothing else in the Weezer catalog. And I'm a big Weezer fan. So yeah, Pinkerton. It's just such great songs on there to make a cohesive album. Now this here, Van Halen, being one of my favorite one of my favorite bands is Van Halen. I was going back and forth between this one and 5150, but 5150 is still one of my favorites. But recently, ever since I started going through all my vinyl, recently I can't stop listening to 1984 by Van Halen. The last album with David Lee Roth. There was so much stuff going on when this was made. You know, before this album was my least favorite album by Van Halen, being Diver Down. Even Eddie Van Halen himself did not like that album at all. They were rushed into the studio to make that album, and he did not like the outcome that much. But 1984, Eddie takes control, introduces the keyboards, which he's been wanting to do. Nobody tells Eddie Van Halen what to do in the Van Halen camp, and he finally was given the green light. And 1984, beginning to end, the keyboards are prominent. The song Jump will be their first #1 song and he's introducing the keyboards into this. And so that's why this album is in my top 20. Harry's right here. And that was my wife, Molly, sticking her head into my video. Top 20. Also, The Who. Who's Next? Every song on here, beginning and end, fantastic. There was no turmoil going on here at all, but this did come after the Tommy double album, and there was so much going on for them. They were in the top of the world and what to do next, so you top it with Who's Next. Here's the back of it. This from beginning to end is just a who's who of songs for The Who. I can't, if you want to know the songs on here, you can go to my W's. I read them all, or I could, I don't want to do it now because it'd be unfair for the other albums. But yeah, Who's Next is in my top 20. It has been in my top 20 for quite a while now. Ever since I got it, I fell in love with this album, and I've had it for a long time. For Neil Young, I was going back and forth. If y'all saw my Neil Young episode, y'all know that Neil Young is my second favorite artist, just after the Beatles. And so what was I going to do? I could have picked so many Neil Youngs, but I always go back to tried and true. Neil Young Harvest. To me, this is his most laid back and best written album, even though it's got one. I learned to love. I really learned to love A Man Needs a Maid after a while. When I first heard it, I didn't like it, but it's become one of my favorite well-written songs. This is just great. This has two of his best-known songs. This is going to have Old Man and Heart of Gold. Heart of Gold being his only #1, if you can believe it. But yeah, this was such a big album to come out during the singer-songwriter movement of the early 70s, and it all started here with Neil Young Harvest. So this always will have a close place in my heart. And I was going to do a Neil Young and Crazy Horse, but that's not fair. But yeah, Neil Young Harvest is great. And if you want to know more about my Neil Young collection, just go to my Neil Young episode where I talk at length about almost every album. But yeah, that one there has Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou Harris singing backing vocals, also James Taylor. So it had so much going for it, and even though it had all that star power, even though they weren't stars yet, that Neil Young was in control of that, those sessions. Last but not least, in my top 20 album coming up, I changed this actually right before I came on. I was talking to my Uncle Rene yesterday. I told him Frank Zappa Overnight Sensation was going to be in my top 20, and he said, well, when I was doing my Frank Zappa episode, I had said that Shake Your Booty was my favorite album. But then I said, no, that's how much I like Frank Zappa. I was going back and forth between this one and Overnight Sensation. Well, just like the Beatles double album, Shake Your Booty is in my top 20 by Frank Zappa. It's a double album, so hence has more songs. But when I was going through these songs, one by one, I was reading them all to myself, going, wow, I know every single song on this double album, word for word, note for note. And so that is why this is my favorite Frank Zappa album. That's why it closes out my top 20. His guitar playing on here is just fantastic. Guitar solos a la mode. The lyrics are funny. They're a little nasty here and there, and nasty and funny in storytelling. And he introduces us to more characters. That's why this has everything that you love about Frank Zappa is thrown together on this double album, Shake Your Booty. So thanks a lot for joining me on my top 20 albums that this is for joining me on my top 20 of my vinyl collection. Thanks for joining me. I really enjoyed going through this. So after I finished with my Z's and the compilations, I've come up with different episodes to keep on doing because I love doing this so much. So my next episode, I am going to go through the my top debut albums in my vinyl collection, and I'll probably pull out all my debut albums that had a significant hit into the world of rock history and rock music, and how it changed rock music, these debut albums that I'm going to show you. So thank you so much for joining me on my episode of my personal top 20 vinyl collection. So I will see y'all again next time. Take care of yourselves, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will get back to you on the comments. I love comments so much. I really like talking back to you guys about music. So take care of yourselves. God bless, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys.